Alright guys, the price of Bitcoin is back above $43,000 at the time of recording, and everything is proceeding exactly as I have foreseen. As I was saying in my last video, we were probably due for a bounce and we might actually have a little bit of relief, but until we break above $44,000, I actually expect us to continue this downturn. And seeing how we have 3 drives of bearish divergence right here on the hourly chart, it looks like we might actually be due for a little bit of a topping formation here, and we might continue to the downside like I thought. Believe me, this is not what I want to see happening, and I would actually prefer it if we go to the upside, because then I would get more viewers and you guys might hit the subscribe button. But for now, I just have to deal with what the chart actually says, and I'm going to keep it 100% honest with you. And right now, I think we actually do have to continue to the downside. Let me tell you why. Well, I already showed you that bearish divergence, and we also do still have this bear flag with a price target of roughly about $34,500 that I think we still have to take out. But these don't have a 100% chance of hitting the price target, so maybe this isn't actually what's going to happen. We did see that little bit of bullish divergence start to play out here, and now it looks like it is fully played out, so since we do have this bearish divergence, generally it means that we're probably going to go down. But this is just the hourly chart. Let's zoom out and see if anything else looks better. Well, right now on the 4-hour chart, the price is pretty much in the overbought territory, and if it goes any higher right here, it's definitely going to put in a bearish divergence, with the price making a lower low here and the RSI willing have made a higher high. If we move down to the daily chart, if it ever freaking loads here, you'll be able to see that the MACD is actually crossing bullish right now, and it looks like we have a bullish engulfing candle. Also, back a few days ago, we did actually have this bullish hammer candle that formed, meaning that we were probably going to be seeing that bounce. But the daily chart is looking pretty inconclusive right now, so I think we actually have to zoom out all the way to a weekly chart to see what's going to happen here. And this is where it actually gets interesting, because pretty much everybody in the whole crypto space is talking about this bullish hammer candle that's formed on the weekly chart. And a lot of times this does indicate that we actually have reached the bottom of a downtrend, but it doesn't look like we had much of a downtrend to reach the bottom of here. And actually, if you go back here and look at some previous times when we had a similar formation, you can see that if we put in one of these hammer candles right here at the pretty much top of a uptrend or a sideways consolidation range on a short-term time scale like this, then it might actually not be as bullish as everybody's expecting, and we could continue with the downtrend before it actually gets pumpy again. This was actually right before things started to go parabolic back in 2020, and you can see that we did have a pretty big wick here to the upside back on the week of August 17th, and then right after that we put in one of those bullish hammer-looking candles. And I'm sure everybody thought that it was all explosions from there and we were going straight up and to the right all the way until we hit the moon. But it looked like we had to have a little bit more retracement, and we came back down to the bottom of the trading range that it was trading within at that time before bouncing off of it and putting in a real hammer candle here and then shooting off to the actual moon. Like I said, usually these hammer candles do happen at the bottom of a downtrend, and that's whenever they usually indicate a reversal and a change of momentum to the upside. But again, just look closely at these candles right here, as we had this pretty big wick on the red candle to the upside before immediately putting in a hammer candle. And if we come back to the current time frame and look at what the candles are in the current weekly chart, it doesn't look exactly the same, but this red candle with a long wick actually looks pretty familiar. And even though there is one Doge candle, which is an indecision candle right in between these two, it was pretty much right after this long wick on the red candle that we put in this hammer candle, and it's not exactly at the bottom of a downtrend. So in my opinion, this is actually still inconclusive, and with the MACD turning to the downside here, I'm not going to lie, it still doesn't look very bullish in my opinion. This is the only one bullish indication that we can see on any of the charts, all the way from the hourly through to the daily and even on the weekly. But on the shorter term time frames, it still looks pretty bearish. And while this might send us to the upside, I still think that we have a little bit more dumpiness to go before we actually find a solid floor, and then we can go back to the upside some more. I could definitely be wrong, but like I said in my last video, until we break above $44,000, I still think we have some more downward pressure to go, And even as pumpy as it's been over the past couple of days, it still hasn't been able to break above 44,000. And that's actually what we would need to confirm a higher high here right now. And until we make higher highs and higher lows, it does look like we're still in a short-term downtrend. Like I said earlier, this is obviously not what I want to see, and I just want to watch it go straight up and to the right forever because obviously I'm invested. But things just aren't going to do that, and anything that goes up has to come down eventually, as they say, and nothing moves in a straight line forever, so I think that these pullbacks are reasonable and definitely important so that we can find support at a floor and actually a previous level of resistance, because if we don't find any support, then eventually we're going to have to come back down, and I'd rather do it sooner than later. In positive news, according to this article on Finbold, it looks like Peter Schiff might actually be finally doing a flip. Shifty Pete over here apparently has a price target of $10 million for Bitcoin if something really specific happens. I'm not going to read the whole article, I already did, but I'll just basically summarize it for you. He pretty much thinks that if the dollar loses all of its value like the mark did back in Weimar of Germany after World War I, then possibly the Bitcoin price could go to $10 million or even infinity. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but that's actually what Bitcoin maxis and Bitcoin investors have been saying since the beginning. Bitcoin is supposed to replace the dollar as the world reserve currency one day, and we actually think it's going to happen as the Fed continues to print the dollar into oblivion. Peter Schiff has been barking up the same tree really for the past 20 years. I've seen documentaries of him back in the 2008 financial crisis talking about how the dollar was going to zero and how they're going to continue printing it into oblivion. But he sells gold, so he's obviously trying to stick with the gold narrative. And he doesn't believe in Bitcoin because I guess he thinks we're going back to spending nothing but gold all the time. It kind of makes sense since people have been spending gold for thousands and thousands of years. But back in those days, it was really dangerous just to walk around with your daily pay, because carrying physical gold on you makes you a target and really easy to rob by people like bandits in the real Old West. But Peter Schiff thinks that Bitcoin is the new Wild Wild West and he doesn't want anything to do with it. It really doesn't make sense much to me though, because our narratives really are one and the same. Neither one of us trusts the Fed or the government, and we think that the dollar is doomed. And while I know the real reason is that he's just trying to sell gold, I just think it would probably be better for everybody involved, even Peter Schiff after he got over the initial embarrassment, if he would actually just flip over to being a Bitcoin bull. But he's been against Bitcoin for so long that I guess he just has to deal with the initial humiliation, and hopefully this is just the first step to him getting there. I've been talking about how Hong Kong was probably going to start getting ETFs and start adopting Bitcoin and cryptocurrency technology as a backdoor for the mainland Chinese investors to get in. And now since over here in America we have some Bitcoin ETFs, it looks like Hong Kong is trying to follow our example and they're going to be getting some next. We all know it took a long time for us to get them over here in America, and they might have a long process in front of them, but since America got it done first and we're actually leading the way, I think they're going to step things up and probably expedite these applications because they don't want to get left behind by the likes of BlackRock. It says one of China's largest fund managers submitted a Bitcoin ETF application to the Hong Kong SFC on January 26th. The report added that the regulatory body is actively working to expedite the process for approvals on ETFs in the country to launch the first Hong Kong spot Bitcoin ETF after the Chinese New Year on February 10th. Hong Kong's regulatory body may follow a similar approach to the US SEC and approve multiple spot ETFs to ensure a level playing field. At least 10 financial institutions in the country are actively working to launch a Bitcoin spot ETF. So like I said, they're probably going to expedite the process, but it's not just one applicant that they actually have 10, and it looks like they're going to probably be approving them all at the same time like the SEC did, meaning that there's probably going to be another huge wave of institutions trying to pour money into Bitcoin, and this time it's going to be coming from China. Speaking of Bitcoin ETF applicants scooping up a whole bunch of Bitcoin, here we have an article by the Daily Hodl, and it says, Bitcoin whales accumulate $3 billion worth of Bitcoin in less than a month. We all know that GBTC has been offloading a bunch of their shares of the Bitcoin Trust because people were actually able to sell it for the first time, meaning that they've been dumping a whole bunch of actual Bitcoin onto the market, and it looks like $3 billion of Bitcoin has been scooped up by the ETF applicants and issuers such as BlackRock and Fidelity and so on. But I guess the accumulation has been almost equal to the number of Bitcoins that have been dumped onto the market. And since GBTC is actually out of Bitcoin to sell, it looks like if this trend continues, Bitcoin might actually blast off and go to the moon real soon. But in my opinion, these whales are going to continue playing games. This $3 billion is just the beginning, though. These ETFs were just recently approved, and eventually, as retirement funds and all kinds of other boomers start putting their money into Bitcoin through these ETFs, I think the whales are only going to have so much power to push things down. And as long as you're a krill swimming in the Bitcoin ocean, you're going to be able to catch a ride with these whales, but just don't get eaten in the meantime. Finally, it looks like it's still going to be a big week with job openings being announced today, initial job claims on Thursday, and non-farm payrolls and unemployment rate coming out on Friday. Most importantly of all, though, we do have the FOMC meeting on Wednesday, and it looks like we currently have a 97% chance of the Fed doing a continuation of their pause, but all eyes are going to be on what they're going to say about their next meeting, because right now there's about a 50-50 chance of if they're going to continue their pause or actually do a cut. And I think everybody's just going to be paying attention to Jerome Powell's statement to see what he says and if he actually does any kind of hinting towards the possibility that there might be a cut. So let me know in the comments, do you guys think like I do that we're going to get a little dippy before we get rippy, or do you think I'm just an idiot? Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, but most importantly, don't forget to have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.